determined at some time in a court of law. But what is clear, the issue of who actually is responsible for the death of Malcolm X and the bitterness surrounding it is still very much alive, even after 30 years. We're live outside the Audubon Ballroom. I'm Julian Phillips for the Channel 11 News at 10. Now let's go back to the studio in Kaidi.
All right, thank you, Julian. And without Malcolm X, there would have been no Louis Farrakhan on the national stage. But the two men's friendship eventually turned to hatred and maybe even murder. Barry Cunningham looks now at the violent history of these two leaders.
I don't know of another black man in history that has been put on the cover of Time magazine to be scorned.
Minister Louis Farrakhan was recruited into the Nation of Islam by Malcolm X in the early 60s. But a blood feud developed between them in 1963 after Malcolm was sent into exile by black Muslim founder Elijah Muhammad.
Here today, it seems that you're waking up.
Malcolm accused Muhammad of having children born out of wedlock. Farrakhan sided with the founder. Soon afterward, Malcolm X's house was bombed. By 1965, Farrakhan had created the climate in which Malcolm was assassinated, according to a new book by Mustafa El-Amin, a former member of the Nation of Islam.
What I think hurt Malcolm was not so much that he couldn't speak around the country, but he couldn't even speak in the mosque that he basically built in New York. There are a lot of people that wanted, in the Nation of Islam, that wanted Malcolm assassinated. Not only Minister Farrakhan, there are many who, if they could have gotten to him, would have killed him themselves.
Why?
Because they loved Elijah so much, and they felt that Malcolm, by exposing Elijah's private life, was a traitor.
Farrakhan's organization today has only about 30,000 members, notorious for their anti-white, anti-Semitic rhetoric. Here at the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, the director said he had no expertise in the area and could not comment, and that none of the historians here knew anything about a schism in the black Muslim movement between Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan.
There's fear associated with that. It's like the Muslims hands off. Let the Muslims deal with that. Because there's fear. See, when you talk about the assassination of Malcolm, and then with the Malcolm movie highlighting certain things, that strikes terror. They don't want to say anything that might lead to their death.
With Barry Cunningham, Channel 11, News at 10.
Right.
Next month, Qibla Shabazz will mark the 30th anniversary of her father's assassination, an execution that she witnessed as a 4-year-old child in Harlem's Audubon Ballroom, a scene so vividly portrayed in Spike Lee's movie Malcolm X. Tonight, Qibla Shabazz is accused of plotting to kill the man her family blames for the murder, Chicago's Louis Farrakhan, a minister who was once her father's disciple, then his enemy. Listen to Minister Farrakhan in 1993.
And if we dealt with him like a nation deals with a traitor, what the hell business is it of yours?
She has nothing to gain by it. She was reared with liking people and feeling that those people did not exist.
The widow of Malcolm X, Qibla's mother, was pursued from Atlanta, Georgia to Tallahassee, Florida, when word of her daughter's indictment leaked out. Federal prosecutors in Minneapolis charged that Qibla Shabazz initiated the plot from New York City last July, later flying to Minnesota, where she allegedly made partial payment to the would-be hitman. Prosecutors have recorded conversations and videos and say the murder would have been carried out in Farrakhan's hometown, Chicago.
The point of this investigation was to investigate a crime which there was reasonable likelihood that it would happen.
But Shabazz's public defender says she was set up by a childhood friend who took advantage of her fragile emotional state.
Her friendship and trust in him was used to create this plot.
This was Malcolm X and his daughters not long before his assassination on February 21st, 1965. Just last year, his widow Betty told WNBC TV that she believed Farrakhan had something to do with it.
Do I think that Louis Farrakhan had? Of course, yes. I mean, it was a matter of, it was a badge of honor. I mean, nobody kept it a secret.
Farrakhan has always denied involvement, although he did say in 1964 that Malcolm X was worthy of death for splitting from and attacking Nation of Islam founder Elijah Muhammad. In 1993, Farrakhan finally acknowledged he was in Newark the night of the murder, not in Boston.
The Jews deal with theirs. Salman Rushdie wrote a nasty thing about the prophet, and Imam Khomeini put out a death stepping on him, and it stands today.
Our clips come from a brand new film that's opened at the 57th Street Playhouse, Brother Minister, The Assassination of Malcolm X. Jack Baxter is the writer and director and came up with several conclusions.
Most people have no idea that 2 innocent men went to jail. 4 other people got away with it. That they were all from Newark.
Elijah Muhammad has given the order to his followers to see that I am crippled or killed.
Now the daughter of an African-American hero is charged with trying to avenge his death as her mother struggles to defend her.
Political people preyed on her emotional and vulnerability.
And Qibla Shabazz is free tonight on $10,000 bail. Prosecutors saying she's been cooperative. If convicted, though, she faces up to 90 years in prison. I'm Mary Murphy, Channel 11, News at 10.
There was shock and sadness to the news that Shabaz's arrest for the black community in our area today. Julian Phillips is standing by live tonight at Harlem's Audubon Ballroom. That's where Malcolm X was assassinated, and he has that part of our story. Julian?
Well, Jack, Qibla Shabazz was here inside the Audubon Ballroom with her 3 sisters and mother Betty Shabazz when their father was so brutally assassinated 30 years ago. And surely the pain and the scars left on the mind of a 4-year-old may never fully be erased. But no one is jumping to the conclusions that she's guilty of what she's been indicted for.
The news of the indictment caught most people by surprise, and as word quickly spread, the Reverend Al Sharpton had more questions than answers.
There are forces in government that would love to disrupt the legacy of Malcolm X, and there are forces in government that are hostile to Minister Farrakhan. So the first thing one has to do is question whether or not there's any credence to the allegation, because that's all an indictment is, and to ask the community, particularly the African-American community, not to enter into taking sides on old wounds, and let's wait and see really what is behind this and really what this is.
On the streets of Harlem, there were those too young to even remember what happened 30 years ago, or the circumstances that led to the assassination of Malcolm X. Some, however, were quick to come up with their own assumptions over the recent developments.
I think it's all nonsense, man. They're always trying to divide us one way or another, man.
Who, the FBI?
Yo.
Former Mayor Dinkins could not give any insight into the indictment, but did offer his prayers for the Shabazz family, and Betty Shabazz in particular, who has endured life without her husband and now faces this latest challenge.
Betty has had to persevere, as it were. The loss of a husband, raise a family. I am so proud to call her Dr. Betty Shabazz as she tries to educate generations of young people. So whatever the circumstances are here, I hope that she will be okay and the family will be okay. I just don't know about the facts and don't wish to really to address them.
Now, we tried to contact the Nation of Islam for an official response, but no one is talking, at least at this time. And whether Qibla Shabazz is guilty of this will be determined at some time in a court of law. But what is clear, the issue of who actually is responsible for the death of Malcolm X and the bitterness surrounding it is still very much alive, even after 30 years. We're live outside the Audubon Ballroom. I'm Julian Phillips for the Channel 11 News at 10. Now let's go back to the studio in Kaidi.